Hi everyone, tonight we step softly back in time to a world where night was longer, colder, and far more patient than ours. A world where warmth was not a given, but a negotiation between the living and the elements. You wake before dawn in a hut smaller than a modern bedroom, a place that smells of smoke, straw, and the slow persistence of survival. The air hangs thick and cold, each breath a small cloud that rises, curls, and vanishes in the dimness above you. Frost draws thin feathers across the walls, tracing the shape of the air you exhale. A faint sound, the restless shift of an animal close by, reminds you that comfort, if it exists at all, comes not from solitude, but from shared breath. You do not conquer this cold. You make terms with it, one heartbeat at a time. Before we drift further, take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Let your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, and your thoughts slow to the rhythm of a medieval winter night. Because in this story, comfort is not soft or silent, it is earned through stillness, through closeness, through an ancient rhythm of adaptation that kept entire villages alive long before glass windows or chimney smoke curled over rooftops. Now, close your eyes and imagine the floor beneath you. Hard earth packed by countless footsteps, uneven but familiar, cold that seeps upward like a whisper. You are a serf, bound to land that does not love you but still sustains you. The year is somewhere in the 13th century, though dates matter little here. What matters is that winter has arrived without apology. The hut around you is built by your own hands and those of your kin, wattle and daub walls, timber beams cut from nearby woods, a roof thick with thatch to hold off the snow. There is no bedroom, no bed as you imagine it. Only a shared floor layered with straw, reeds, and old cloaks. The hearth at the center of the room has gone quiet, its fire reduced to soft red embers beneath ash. Smoke lingers low, mixing with breath, settling into wool and skin until every surface carries the same scent of heat, long spent, of survival that depends on patience. You sleep dressed, as everyone does. To remove clothing would be to invite death. Your tunic and cloak form your only blanket, their coarse fibers prickling your skin but trapping what little warmth your body produces. Every layer matters. Every thread stitched by calloused hands is another barrier between you and the endless cold pressing at the walls. The hut itself breathes with the weather. Wind moves through it not as an intruder, but as a constant guest, finding its way through cracks in the mud-sealed lattice, sighing softly as it passes. When the wind dies, the silence feels heavier, as if even the air outside has frozen in place. Snow falls unseen beyond the thatch roof, and each flake that lands above you adds the smallest fraction of insulation, weight and silence combining to create fragile safety. Inside, life gathers close. Children sleep between adults. Elders rest near the hearth. Animals lie along the walls, their bodies radiating a gentle living heat that fills the space low to the ground. You can hear them breathe, slow, steady, almost oceanic in rhythm. A cow's sigh feels like the earth itself exhaling. A pig stirs, hooves shifting against straw. These are not pets, not companions. They are warmth incarnate, the living currency that keeps frost from claiming the house before morning. Historians tell us that most peasant dwellings before the late Middle Ages were single-room structures, no larger than a modern garage, with everything, sleeping, cooking, storing tools, and sheltering animals, contained in one communal space. This arrangement, crude as it seems to us, was not chaos. It was order born of necessity. Every breath, every ember, every body in that room played its part in preserving warmth. Your bedding is little more than straw, a pile renewed only when harvests allow, flattened by months of use until it feels closer to soil than to comfort. But even this thin layer holds pockets of air, small reservoirs of warmth that slow the cold's ascent from the ground. Sometimes herbs, rushes, thyme, lavender are scattered within it, their scent faint and fading, a small defense against insects and damp. You shift slightly, hearing the soft crunch of stalks beneath you, feeling the sting of smoke in your throat. You do not sleep deeply. No one does. Medieval sleep is fragmented, cautious, light enough to wake at the sound of wind or breath or shifting straw, but it is sleep nonetheless. Slow, rhythmic, communal. The body rests not through comfort but through endurance. It learns the rhythm of cold, the cadence of breath shared between humans and beasts, the subtle, almost holy stillness of surviving together through the night. Outside, the world is silent under snow. The village breathes as one, each hut a fragile star of warmth in a frozen sea. Inside yours you have learned the first truth of medieval winter. Fire fades, straw flattens, walls leak. But warmth, true warmth, comes from proximity, from patience, from the quiet understanding that you are not alone in the cold. And as your eyes grow heavy again, the line between waking and sleeping blurs. Smoke becomes fog. Cold becomes a memory that hovers just outside your skin. You drift deeper into the long shared dream of every peasant who ever lay on this earth before you. A dream not of comfort but of endurance, and of morning's promise that the sun, however weak, will return. You drift, though the drift is shallow, like a leaf floating just beneath the surface of water. Sleep here is never deep. It is cautious, aware, tuned to every sound that might signal danger or warmth lost. The night breathes around you. Someone sighs. A child shifts. Straw crackles softly as if whispering secrets to the dark. Beyond that, you hear the steady pulse of life, the deep, rhythmic exhale of livestock pressed close to the walls, the faint murmur of human breath weaving through it. A quiet chorus of survival. When warmth cannot be made, it must be shared. This truth defines the rhythm of winter. Bodies form constellations across the straw, arranged with unspoken precision learned over generations. Children at the center, adults around them, elders near the fire's last ghosts. The order shifts as needs do. An infant sickens, an elder's bones ache, and the group adjusts without words, because every movement has consequence. The difference between waking to frost on your lips and waking at all can be measured in inches. The closeness is constant. Skin brushes against rough wool, knees meet backs, shoulders touch. The air between you grows heavy, thick with breath and the faint musk of animals and earth. In that weight, warmth gathers, fragile, invisible, precious. You feel it rising from the floor, lingering between bodies, forming a low dome of heat that pushes back against the cold, pressing from every side. There is no privacy, but there is life, and that is the only currency that matters. Modern comfort would call this claustrophobia. Here it is community. Medieval nights teach you that silence is not emptiness. It is a shared decision to conserve, to endure together without waste. Each person becomes both burden and blessing to the others. You can feel your neighbor's breath on your neck, the faint tremor of their heartbeat through the straw, and it soothes you more than distance ever could. In this place, warmth is not personal. It is collective, made possible only by nearness. The animals add their steady rhythm. The cow's flank radiates heat, slow and unwavering. A goat's breath fogs softly in the dark. Even the pig's restless sigh carries comfort. Their smell is strong, sweet hay turned sour, smoke tangled with manure, but it blends into the atmosphere of necessity. It tells you the balance holds. Their heat rises through the straw, through the air, through the night itself. Historians find evidence of this arrangement across medieval Europe, barns and dwellings sharing walls, families sleeping just feet from their livestock during the harshest months. It was no accident of poverty. It was physics made practical. The warmth of another living creature was worth more than the illusion of separation. And as your body learns to sleep within that warmth, you feel a primitive gratitude so old it predates language. Your cloak, damp with breath and frost, grows heavier as night deepens. Its fibers drink the moisture from the air, but even soaked, wool keeps what warmth it can. You shift carefully, tucking its edge beneath your shoulder, folding it twice across your chest. The movement is small, deliberate, the result of generations of habit. Medieval sleep is not rest, it is a quiet art, performed without thought, refined by centuries of necessity. The room hums with life. Every sound is low, repetitive, hypnotic. The kind of sound that smooths thought into quiet acceptance. The air is dense but kind. Even the cold has grown tired of its own sharpness, settling into something dull and manageable. You breathe in smoke, exhale warmth, and feel yourself sink slightly into the straw, its coarse texture scratching faintly at your neck. No one stirs the fire now. The embers are left to dream in ash, glowing faintly, enough to remind you that light once lived here. The red of it bleeds dimly through the haze, catching the underside of the roof beams, revealing the delicate threads of spiderwebs that shimmer like frost. That faint light and the rhythm of breath are the night's only witnesses. Somewhere beyond the wall, wind tests the structure, pressing against it like a curious hand. It finds cracks, slips through, and brushes your cheek with the gentlest sting. You do not flinch. The wall holds well enough. The warmth around you absorbs the loss. The air tastes faintly of wood smoke and wool. Time stretches. Minutes melt into something slower, older, unmeasured. The body forgets the boundary between waking and sleeping. This half-sleep is not a flaw. It is the body's answer to survival. You drift through it like water through a reed bed, sometimes still, sometimes stirring. Dreams arrive in fragments, faces of family, glimpses of summer, the smell of bread long vanished. And in those dreams, you are not cold. You are alive, suspended between frost and fire, learning the second truth of medieval sleep, that rest is not the absence of struggle, but the space carved gently within it. You shift once more, just enough to feel the warmth of another body touch yours, and this time you do not resist it. You let the shared heat draw you down again, deeper than before, into the steady rhythm of breath and straw and distant wind, until even thought dissolves into the quiet hum of endurance. Dawn does not arrive in light. It arrives in sound. A rooster calling somewhere through the fog, the soft clink of a wooden bucket set down near the door, a child coughing once before turning over again. The world returns gradually, piece by piece, as if reluctant to reveal itself too quickly, after a night that lasted too long. You are awake before your eyes open. The first thing you feel is weight. The weight of the cloak heavy on your shoulders, the weight of the air that has cooled again, the weight of fatigue that no sleep can erase. The warmth that filled the room during the night is already beginning to thin, leaking through cracks, rising through the roof to join the pale mist outside. The cold creeps back in like a familiar debt collecting what it is owed. Your breath emerges white. You do not shiver yet. Shivering wastes strength. Instead, you move slowly, deliberately, testing your limbs as if they belong to someone else. Stiff fingers, aching knees, a back that resists before yielding. The body is an old tool, worn but reliable. Around you, others begin to stir. A murmur here, a stretch there, the rustle of straw, as people disentangle themselves from the heap of limbs and fabric that kept them alive through the night. The smell of animals is stronger now, sharpened by the chill air. Their bodies shift, hooves scraping against the packed earth. A cow exhales a great plume of steam into the dim light. And for a brief moment it looks like the house itself is breathing. The pig lets out a low grunt, impatient, as if reminding everyone that morning always follows, no matter how cruel the night has been. The room is grey, washed in the first colourless hints of day. The thatch above you gleams faintly with frost, sparkling where the faint light finds it through the smoke haze. The air feels drier now, thinner. You draw your cloak tighter, unwilling to surrender the warmth you still hold. There is no sudden burst of activity. Waking is a slow unfurling, a negotiation like everything else. Someone pulls the cover from the hearth, rakes through ash with a stick, until a faint orange glow appears. A breath of life returns to the embers, small and trembling. Sparks rise like tiny stars and vanish. Soon smoke begins to curl upward again, thin and blue, bringing with it the sharp scent of damp wood. Fire is not warmth yet, it is the promise of it. Historians note that morning in a medieval peasant's life began not with leisure but with labour. Even before the first meal there were tasks to be done: animals to feed, water to draw, embers to coax, tools to ready for the fields. But for a moment, before movement becomes necessity, there is stillness, a communal pause where bodies linger half in dream, reluctant to disturb the fragile balance they have kept through the night. You glance toward the door. Frost has formed in delicate webs along its edges where moisture met the air. Beyond it lies the world, fields buried under snow, paths slick with ice, a sky that has forgotten colour. But inside, life gathers strength again. The smallest crackle of rekindled flame feels like triumph. You sit up slowly. The straw beneath you shifts, releasing a faint smell of earth and smoke. It is flattened now, its work done for another night. You run a hand across it, feeling how dry it has become, brittle and tired, much like yourself. Soon it will need to be replaced, when weather allows, when time allows, when harvest allows. Everything in this life depends on when the land decides to give permission. Children stir near the centre, faces half hidden in wool. Their hair smells of smoke and sleep. An older woman covers them again, careful not to let too much cold in. The gesture is small, practiced, and infinitely tender. It is these motions, the quiet, unspoken kindnesses, that make endurance possible. The animals are restless now. The cow shifts its weight, the goat bleats softly, the sound low and rhythmic. They know their routine as well as you do. They will be led outside soon to feed, to breathe air so cold it burns. Their warmth has saved you once more, and now the cycle continues. You will feed them, clean after them, tend to them, so that they may in turn sustain you. Survival in this world is always circular. The air grows brighter by degrees. The faint light of dawn filters through the roof, turning the smoke above into a golden mist. You can see your breath more clearly now, each exhale briefly visible before it fades into the morning. The smell of burning wood deepens, sweet and sharp, and it fills the space with the quiet certainty of another day beginning. You rise fully, your joints protesting, your cloak dragging across straw. The room looks different now that the dark has lifted. Smaller, humbler, yet strangely alive. Every wall bears the mark of human effort, of survival written in soot and mud. You see where hands once patched cracks with fresh clay, where straw hangs loose from the roof, where tools lean against the wall waiting for daylight. Outside, the world waits in silence, white and endless. Inside, warmth flickers again. You kneel beside the fire, coaxing the embers into flame, feeling heat bloom against your fingers. For the first time in hours, the air begins to move upward instead of inward. You hear the low crackle of life returning to the hearth, and with it, to you. The others rise one by one. No one speaks much. There is no need. Words are for summer, when the world is generous. In winter, every breath has weight, every gesture meaning. A loaf of coarse bread is passed, its crust dark and hard from yesterday's heat. A few bites each, enough to wake the stomach but not silence it. Outside, a faint light spills across the snow, cold but steady. The day will demand everything from you again. Your hands, your strength, your patience, but you will meet it, as you did the night, with quiet resolve. The memory of warmth will linger in your skin for a little while longer, and as smoke rises toward the thatch once more, you understand the third truth of medieval winter sleep. Survival is not won in a single act of endurance. It is rebuilt every morning, ember by ember, breath by breath, until spring returns to relieve you. For now, you stand near the small fire, palms out, eyes half closed, letting its fragile warmth touch your face. Behind you, straw rustles softly. The animals stir again, and outside, the first bird dares a note against the silence of snow. Morning has come. The night is over, but only just. Daylight does not bring comfort. It brings obligation. The faint warmth of the sun is a gesture, not a gift, and it cannot be wasted. You step outside the hut, pulling your cloak tighter, and the cold meets you like a wall. The air is sharper here, cleaner than the smoky breath of the room you left behind, but it bites deeper too. It smells of snow, wood, and distant fire from another chimney, perhaps a lord's hall, or a neighbour's cottage already awake. The sound of your own footsteps crunching on frost feels too loud in a landscape so still. In this light you see what the night concealed, the roof silvered with ice, the thin smoke rising from other huts like faint prayers, the frozen puddles that mirror the pale sky. Your hands sting, not from cold alone, but from the sudden change, as if your body no longer remembers what warmth feels like in open air. You move quickly, because motion is heat, and stillness is surrender. Your tasks are the same as every winter morning. Water first if the well has not frozen solid. You break the thin crust of ice. Scoop water into buckets that steam faintly in the chill. The rope burns your palms as you pull it, fibers stiff with frost. Nearby, the animals watch, their breath rising in thick clouds. They are patient, trusting your movements as part of their own survival. Feeding them comes next. Hay that smells faintly of summer fills the air for a moment before settling again into the rhythm of the season. The sound of animals eating, chewing, breathing, shifting is reassuring. They have lived another night, as you have. You stroke the cow's flank absently. Its hide radiates warmth through your sleeve. You linger longer than necessary, just to feel that heat. Historians studying medieval life often note that peasants were rarely idle in winter, but their labour changed. The frozen ground paused planting and harvest, yet life demanded constant maintenance, mending roofs, repairing tools, spinning wool, patching clothes. The day became an unbroken cycle of small, necessary movements designed to keep cold from gaining ground. You understand this instinctively. Warmth must be earned again and again. It never stays on its own. Back inside, the fire has awakened. It cracks softly, throwing uneven light across the walls. Smoke swirls upward, carrying the smell of peat and wood. You hold your hands near it, palms open, feeling the sting as warmth returns too quickly to skin that forgot it. The first sensation is pain, then comfort, then the quiet pleasure of knowing that you still can feel at all. The others are moving now, shaking straw from cloaks, stretching limbs, starting the slow rhythm of daily life. The hut, so silent during the night, hums again with small sounds, wood shifting, bread being cut, a quiet murmur of conversation. Children laugh weakly. Even that feels miraculous in winter. Their energy cuts through the heaviness of cold, like a candle's flicker in the dark. You sit near the fire's edge, chewing bread that is dense and rough, its flavour more smoke than grain. It fills your stomach enough to silence the ache. Someone pours a little ale or watered wine, warm liquid, simple and grounding. These are the luxuries of endurance, not abundance. Through the open doorway, pale sunlight spills across the earth floor, catching on motes of dust and ash. The light is weak, but it transforms the space, turning the air itself golden for a moment before it fades again. This is how warmth arrives here, not as heat but as memory, a reminder that the world beyond the frost still exists. By midday, the house will grow colder again. The fire burns low because wood is rationed, saved for cooking, and the long hours of night. You will patch the wall with clay where it cracks, mend the thatch where snow has crept in, check the animals again, fetch water again. Each act is small, but together they weave a fragile continuity through the heart of winter. When darkness falls once more, it will not surprise you. It always returns early, swallowing colour and shape. You will eat again, sparingly, then gather near the hearth as the last warmth fades. The same dance will begin, the slow unwinding into sleep, the rearranging of straw, the drawing close of bodies, the quiet surrender to necessity. And yet in that cycle, There is a kind of peace. The night no longer feels like an enemy but a teacher. It has taught you that warmth is not a condition, it is an act, a craft, a form of attention to every breath, every ember, every other living being beside you. As you sit near the fire now, its light flickering across your hands, you understand that survival in this world depends on repetition, not invention. The same motions, the same gestures, performed faithfully day after day, night after night, season after season. Each one a small defiance against the cold. Outside, snow begins again, soft and slow. You watch it through the small gap at the top of the door, flakes drifting like ash. The wind sighs, finding its voice once more, and the hut creaks in response but holds firm. You draw your cloak around you, and for a moment you let the sound of the snow become your heartbeat. Night will come soon, and when it does, you will return to the same straw, the same warmth, the same fragile rhythm, because that is what life in a medieval winter truly was, not a struggle against the cold, but a conversation with it, whispered and endless. The day, like all winter days, fades without ceremony. The sun never truly rises high enough to promise warmth. It only drifts, pale and watchful, across a sky that feels made of tin. You work as you always do, the rhythm steady, deliberate, unchanging. Hands move from one task to the next, feeding, mending, gathering, breathing, until the line between survival and habit disappears entirely. When the light begins to fail, there is no surprise, only quiet acceptance. Inside the hut, smoke has thickened again. The smell of damp wool, ash, and earth fills every corner. The animals settle early, knowing before you do that night is coming. The smallest fire burns in the hearth, its glow soft and uneven, its warmth barely reaching where you sit. Yet even that faint heat feels like a blessing. You hold your hands toward it, palms open, not asking for comfort but simply acknowledging the gift of another day completed. Someone murmurs a few words, perhaps a prayer, perhaps only a wish. In winter the difference is small. Faith here is not loud or dramatic. It lives in repetition, in the rhythm of tasks performed without complaint. Every repaired wall, every handful of straw, every shared blanket becomes a kind of devotion. You do not ask for miracles. You ask for morning, and when it comes, that is miracle enough. You eat what remains of yesterday's bread. It is hard now, the crust brittle, but it softens in your mouth as you chew slowly beside the fire. The taste is dry, smoky, familiar. Outside, wind carries the faint sound of another village's bell, distant, softened by snow. For a moment it feels like the world is larger again, connected through sound even as frost separates everything else. When it grows too dark to see, you move closer to the fire. Its light flickers against the faces of those around you, tired, lined, quiet faces marked by smoke and work. You see reflection in their eyes, not fear, not resignation, but endurance, patient and steady. The firelight makes them look like figures from an older time, and in truth they are. You are all continuations of the same story, passed down through generations that learned to survive the night by staying close and keeping still. As the fire dwindles, voices fade, the last sparks rise like fireflies, briefly alive before vanishing into smoke. The room exhales as everyone settles back into place. Straw is rearranged, cloaks folded, children drawn inward. Animals shift and still again. There is no command, no discussion, only instinct, honed through countless nights exactly like this one. The hut becomes a single organism once more, breathing, sighing, waiting. Outside, snow falls again. You hear it first as a soft tapping on thatch, then as silence deepening. The air grows heavy, muffled. You can almost feel the weight of snow pressing down, sealing the world in quiet. The cold no longer feels like an enemy, but a vast, indifferent presence, something ancient, something that asks nothing but patience. You close your eyes, and for a moment you think of warmth not as heat, but as memory. The memory of summer fields, of green leaves moving in wind, of bare feet on warm soil. You cannot see these things now, but they live in the same place inside you where faith lives, in the space that endures what the body cannot change. That space is what keeps you alive. The medieval night has its own kind of prayer, one made not of words but of breath shared in darkness. Every inhale is an act of trust, every exhale a surrender. You breathe together because it is the only way to outlast the cold. Historians sometimes call this world poor, but lying here you realize how rich it is in presence, in sound, in the closeness of others who endure the same darkness. There are no luxuries, but there is understanding, and that understanding is its own form of peace. Your eyes grow heavy again. The last light from the hearth flickers weakly, painting the ceiling with faint gold. Smoke curls upward in a slow dance before vanishing into thatch. Breath warms the air just enough to blur the outlines of the people around you. The cold presses closer, but you no longer resist it. You accept it, and in that acceptance you find something that feels like rest. The night deepens. Outside, the world sleeps beneath a white, unbroken silence. Inside you sleep too, not as a conqueror of winter, but as part of it. And that, perhaps, is the final truth of medieval sleep. It was not a retreat from the cold, but a communion with it. The body, the fire, the animals, the breath, all parts of a single fragile balance that carried life through darkness and back into dawn. When morning comes again, faint and grey, you will rise once more. You will rebuild the fire, feed the animals, stretch stiff limbs, and begin again. And though you will never name it, the endurance that binds you to this rhythm is faith in its simplest, purest form, the quiet belief that even the coldest night has an end. Night returns before the body is ready for it. The daylight has been brief, the firewood counted, the tools stacked neatly by the wall. You move slowly through twilight, the light fading from grey to blue, then to the deep brown of smoke and shadow that belongs only to winter. The air changes before darkness fully settles. It thickens, cools, holds still for a heartbeat, as if listening to the village exhale all at once. There is no sound of bells now, no bird song, only the soft breathing of livestock, and the faint clatter of buckets being pulled inside before frost claims them. Inside, the hut is already preparing for night again. The fire burns lower on purpose, its flames kept small so the wood will last until morning. The walls smell of smoke, of earth, of the long patience of survival. You can see the way light touches the surfaces, uneven, fragile, trembling over the straw and the folds of wool. The faces around you look the same and yet older, the day having taken what little energy it could. A child leans against a parent's arm. An old woman folds her shawl tighter around her shoulders. No one speaks loudly. Speech feels wasteful, too bright for the dim quiet of evening. You know the sequence now, the ritual your body performs without thought. The cloak is shaken free of dust. The straw is turned over, smoothed by hand. A few handfuls of herbs saved from autumn are scattered across it, rushes and thyme, not for comfort but to keep the air from turning too damp. The smell is faint, almost lost beneath the weight of smoke, but it helps. It always helps. The animals have found their places again. The cow settles first, folding its legs beneath itself with a slow, heavy sigh. The goats curl beside the wall. Their warmth has already begun to seep into the air, invisible but certain. The sound of their breathing joins yours, the whole room drawing into one slow rhythm of life that feels older than words. Someone speaks softly, perhaps a prayer or a fragment of a psalm remembered imperfectly. The words do not reach everyone, but the tone does, a low murmur that blends with the rustle of straw. Faith here is not a thing of ceremony. It is a habit of endurance. You whisper not because you expect to be answered, but because the act of whispering itself keeps hope alive. When darkness thickens, it does so completely. There is no half-light once the fire falls to embers. You feel the room by touch now, the rough weave of wool, the cool press of the wall at your back, the faint vibration when someone shifts on the straw. You breathe carefully through your cloak to keep the air moist and warm. Your eyes sting a little from smoke that never fully leaves, but it is a familiar sting, part of the air itself, and you accept it as you accept the cold. Historians still debate what dreams might have been like for people who slept this way, fragmented, half-lucid, shaped by sound and temperature as much as by memory. You suspect that dreams here are not escape, but reflection, the night replaying itself in quieter forms. Sometimes you dream of light, of open fields, of the taste of warm bread. Sometimes you dream only of breathing. Both are the same thing. In the end, signs that you are still alive. As hours pass, sleep becomes a tide. You drift and rise, drawn back by the cough of someone near you, by the snort of an animal, by a small draught crawling under the door. The line between night and body blurs. You no longer measure time, you measure warmth. The straw beneath you has flattened again, but its dust smells faintly sweet, and that smell is enough to keep your thoughts slow, soft, far away from hunger. Outside, the wind moves through the village like a long sigh. It passes over roofs, through cracks, along the frozen paths between houses. It knows every weakness and touches each one gently, not as an enemy but as a reminder that the world is larger than these walls. The wind does not hate you. It simply exists, and that too is part of the lesson of winter. To understand that cold is not malice, that hardship is not punishment, that endurance is a form of peace. Inside, someone stirs the fire, just enough to push a small glow into the air again. The embers flare, light sliding across the straw, across faces turned towards sleep. For a moment the hut looks golden, alive, almost warm. Then the light softens again, shrinking back into its bed of ash, leaving behind the faint hum of smoke that floats upward, a quiet benediction for the night. You turn on your side, pressing closer to where the warmth lingers. The cloak creases softly beneath you. The breath of those nearby fills the air with slow rhythm. It is the same as every night, and yet it feels new each time, a fragile balance remade from the raw elements of life, air, earth, fire, and flesh. Your eyelids grow heavy again. The cold waits patiently outside, pressing against the door like an animal denied entry. The fire murmurs, the roof crackles, and the room drifts into a single shared dream. The night deepens until time itself feels frozen. You lie between waking and sleep, hovering in that fragile space where thoughts blur into dreams, where sound becomes memory and memory becomes sound. The hut no longer feels like a structure but like a living organism, breathing in slow harmony, the creak of timber like bones stretching, the sigh of the thatch above like lungs exhaling frost. The air is thick and smoky, heavy with the scent of earth and animals, and the faint sweetness of straw decomposing beneath your body. Yet it is not unpleasant. It is the smell of persistence, of life clinging quietly to its place in the cold. In this half-sleep, thoughts move differently. They drift, detached from logic, shaped instead by warmth and sound. You think you hear snow sliding from the roof, a soft hiss like whispered speech. You imagine it as the voice of the world itself, ancient and indifferent, murmuring through centuries of winter nights. You do not fear it. Fear takes too much energy, and in this place, energy is currency. Instead, you simply listen, and in listening you find peace. There are moments when your body forgets to belong entirely to itself. The edges blur. Your hands, tucked under your chest, no longer feel distinct from the straw beneath them. You cannot tell where fabric ends and skin begins, where warmth belongs to you or to another. The boundaries of self dissolve, and in that dissolution there is a strange comfort, a reminder that survival here has never been solitary. Some who lived and died in these centuries wrote of souls rising during sleep, of spirits wandering above the body in the hours before dawn. You understand now why such stories were born. When warmth seeps slowly from limbs, when breath grows shallow and even, it is easy to believe that part of you drifts upward for a while, watching, waiting, testing the silence of the room before returning when light calls it back. You feel that pull now, the soft upward tug of consciousness loosening from its weight. The hut around you fades into shadowed abstraction, outlines of sleeping figures, the dull gleam of a pot by the hearth, the faint shimmer of ice forming near the door. The mind turns these into symbols without effort, a universe of small, familiar shapes that hold entire meanings. The pot is survival, the straw beneath you is earth itself, the roof is the boundary between existence and oblivion. In another world you might call these dreams, but here they are, simply the language of winter, the way the night speaks when all else has gone quiet. Outside, snow falls steadily. You can feel its weight through the roof, pressing downward in soft increments, each flake another grain of silence added to the hour. Occasionally the wind shifts, lifting some of it away, and the thatch cracks faintly like old parchment. The sound is gentle but precise enough to remind you that the world still moves. The fire answers with a low pop, ember meeting air for an instant before falling back into ash. That balance, cold above, warmth below, is the constant negotiation of every breath you take. A cough breaks the rhythm, brief and rough, then fades. The room settles again, as though nothing has changed. You realize how quickly human sound disappears in the presence of natural silence. Even your own breath feels borrowed, granted for a short while by something older than you. You inhale through wool, the air softened by cloth and smoke, and exhale into the shared darkness. The warmth that leaves your body is gathered by someone else, unseen. Historians might one day describe this as poverty, but lying here you sense another word entirely: equilibrium. The body and the world have reached an understanding. You give heat, and the air gives it back in softened form. You rest, and the earth beneath holds you without judgment. This is what it means to endure, to belong to the cycle rather than to fight it. Somewhere far away, perhaps miles across snow and silence, another hut mirrors yours, another family curled in the same pattern, another fire fading into the same smoke. The thought drifts through you like a tide, and for a moment the loneliness of night dissolves completely. You are part of something vast and wordless, a civilization of sleepers scattered across frozen land, united not by sight or sound but by rhythm. The body grows heavy again. The half-wakefulness begins to fade. You feel yourself sinking, slowly as though into snow. The cold no longer bites, it simply is. The straw beneath you hums faintly with warmth, the last residue of day held prisoner for a few more hours. You surrender to it willingly. Your last thought before sleep takes full hold is not of fear or hunger, but of gratitude, quiet, unspoken gratitude for breath, for warmth, for the fragile peace of this long winter night. The darkness folds over you gently. The wind outside resumes its steady wandering, tracing the edges of roofs and hills, carrying with it the faintest promise that the world, though cold, still remembers how to turn toward morning. The cold finds its deepest voice sometime past midnight. You cannot tell the hour, for there are no clocks here, no measure but the rhythm of your own breath and the occasional crackle of wood surrendering to ash. Time has flattened into a single endless present, a steady hum of existence pressed between frost and smoke. The body no longer fights the chill. It has learned the art of quiet resistance. Every muscle has softened into stillness, conserving what warmth remains. Every breath has slowed to the patient rhythm of endurance. The air inside the hut has thickened again. Smoke drifts low, heavy with the residue of hours. The smell of wood and dung, of wool and earth, hangs around you like a second skin. It stings a little when you breathe too deeply. Yet there is something familiar, almost soothing in that sting. It is proof that fire once lived here, that heat was made, that life persisted. Somewhere to your right, someone moans in their sleep, a low sound, not of pain but of exhaustion too heavy for words. A child whimpers, then quiets, when a hand, half awake, rests across their chest. The gesture is instinctive, a reflex older than thought. You feel it too, that quiet need to keep the world alive by touch alone. It is a law of this room, unwritten and absolute. What stays close survives. The cold moves differently now. It is no longer a wind or a draught, but a presence a patient watcher that lingers at the edges of breath. You feel it where your cloak has slipped, a line of frost creeping along the exposed skin of your neck. You do not move to correct it. To move would disturb the fragile balance of shared warmth. Instead, you let the cold rest there, testing you, and you learn again how endurance is a form of prayer. In this deep hour, thoughts begin to drift towards strange places. The mind unravels from the body, floating gently through the half-dark. Images rise and fall, faces you have known, the shape of fields in summer, the shimmer of heat on soil, long forgotten by snow. You see these things not with eyes but with memory, as though the soul itself has opened a window onto another season. It is easy to understand why medieval people spoke of spirits wandering during the night, of souls leaving the body to roam above the frost. You feel that pull now, the soft, slow untying between flesh and breath, as though something lighter inside you wants to rise. The line between dream and life bends. You hear the roof creak, and for a moment you imagine it as the groan of the earth itself, straining under winter's weight. The sound travels through your bones like a voice you once knew. Outside, the snow keeps falling, its rhythm steady and soundless. Each flake joins a blanket that grows heavier and more forgiving, pressing noise into silence. You can almost feel its weight above you, a soft, enormous stillness. The fire has nearly died. Only a faint glow pulses beneath the ash, its light moving like breath inside a sleeping animal. Every so often it flares just enough to cast shadows against the wall, uneven, human, alive for a heartbeat before disappearing. The hut becomes a cave of faint movement and shallow sound, and in that cave, life contracts to its simplest form: heat, breath, pulse. You realize how little separates you from everything else around you. The animals, the others, the straw, the air, it all merges in the same quiet rhythm. Even the smoke seems alive, curling around you as if listening. You are not dreaming, not fully awake, but suspended in the thin place between. It is here in this space that survival begins to feel like something holy, not dramatic, not defiant, just humble and infinite. You think of morning, though it feels impossibly far away. The sun is out there somewhere, hidden behind miles of frozen air and night. It will come eventually, as it always does, but it does not hurry. Winter teaches slowness, patience, the long waiting that wears down everything except the will to continue. You breathe once, twice, counting without meaning to. The air entering your lungs feels heavier than before, but it still carries warmth, and that is enough. There are no dreams now, only impressions. The echo of wind moving through trees, the faint pressure of a heartbeat against your own, the strange awareness that your body has become both boundary and bridge between the living world and the sleeping one. The cold presses closer, testing, then withdrawing, as though even it respects the stillness you've earned. This is the coldest part of the night, the hour when even time feels brittle, when light and memory are gone, when life itself seems to hesitate before deciding to continue. But the decision is made quietly, not in triumph but in breath. One more inhale, one more exhale, a soft return to rhythm. That is how survival sounds here. Outside, snow keeps falling. Inside, the last ember glows once more, small and steady as a heartbeat. And through the stillness, through the weight of smoke and frost, you realize you have learned the final truth of winter's deepest hour. That warmth is not something you find. It is something you make moment by moment, in the company of those who have chosen not to give up. The hour before dawn is the hardest of all. It is the time when even fire forgets itself, when embers turn grey and warmth hides deeper in the earth. The air inside the hut has lost its gentleness. It is sharper now, like glass against the lungs. Every breath hurts a little, as though winter wants to carve its initials inside you before it goes. You lie still because stillness is the only defense left. Movement would break the thin film of warmth you and the others have built together through the long night. You feel your heartbeat in your fingertips, slow and deliberate, like the knocking of a visitor you cannot ignore. The body is working harder now, quietly choosing life over surrender with every pulse. Your feet are numb, Your face stings, yet there is something strangely calm in this discomfort. The mind stops fighting. It watches instead. This is the moment when the cold seems strongest, and yet you know by instinct, by memory, that this is also the moment when it begins to fade. Outside, the world is absolutely silent. Not even wind dares to move. The snow lies heavy and unbroken across the land, a smooth white ocean that hides everything beneath it. The sky, invisible through the thatch, begins to change so slowly that you do not notice at first. What was black turns to deep blue, then to something softer, the faintest hint of silver at the edge of the world. The light is still too weak to be called morning, but it exists, fragile and real, like a secret. Inside, the first signs of day are not seen but heard. A cow shifts, her breath turning to steam in the air. Someone coughs, dry and soft, the sound echoing in the small space. A child stirs under a cloak, mumbling something between sleep and speech, then silence again. But it is a living silence now, a silence that listens forward, toward what is coming. The thatch above you begins to drip. Tiny beads of water slide through the straw. The first tears of melting frost. They fall slowly, one at a time, darkening the straw beneath. You hear them before you feel them, a delicate rhythm like the ticking of an unseen clock. It is the sound of the night loosening its hold, of the world remembering that warmth exists somewhere beyond the horizon. Your body knows this too. Blood begins to return to your fingers, prickling, burning slightly as it moves. You shift for the first time in hours, drawing your knees closer, flexing stiff joints. The others stir as well, small, reluctant movements at first, then more. Straw crackles. Someone sighs. Someone else mutters a prayer that sounds more like gratitude than plea. You open your eyes. The world inside the hut is still dim, washed in smoke and shadow, but the darkness has softened. Through a thin gap between the planks, a line of light appears, faint, blue, trembling. It falls across the wall, touches the floor, then disappears as a cloud passes. But it was there, and its memory remains, enough to make the cold seem less permanent. The fire pit is nothing but ash now. A faint heat sleeps beneath it. Hidden, you reach out with a stick and stir it gently, careful not to wake the others too abruptly. Beneath the grey, a single ember glows, a dull, steady heart of orange. You breathe toward it, softly, rhythmically, and watch it brighten, alive again. The smallest flame licks upward, catching on a splinter of wood. It grows, fragile at first, then steady. Light blooms across the faces nearest you, turning the room from shadow into shape. The day has begun. For a moment, no one speaks. There is only the sound of breath, of straw shifting, of fire crackling in quiet triumph. Then, one by one, voices rise. A question, a murmur, a soft laugh from a child who doesn't yet understand what has been survived. The cow answers with a low groan, the goat stretches, the roof drops a final bead of melted frost that hisses when it meets the flame. Historians sometimes say that dawn meant work for peasants, not rest. But you see now that dawn was also proof, a wordless affirmation that endurance works, that breath and patience and faith have done their job once more. You survived another night. The light outside strengthens, blue giving way to grey, grey to pale gold. Smoke curls from your hut's roof, rising straight into the still air. Across the village, other roofs begin to smoke too, other embers coaxed back to life by hands no different from yours. It is as if the whole landscape has begun to breathe again. You sit upright now, cloak still wrapped around your shoulders. The air is painfully cold, but you do not resent it. You look toward the door, and in the faint glow filtering through the cracks, you see dust floating, slow and golden. Every particle is a fragment of the night made visible by morning, and as you watch it drift, you realize the simplest truth of all warmth, light, life. They never truly leave. They only hide, waiting for those patient enough to wait through the darkness. The first sound that belongs to morning is the sound of doors being lifted, wooden latches scraping against frozen frames. The noise carries easily in the thin winter air, one small announcement after another, that life inside each hut has begun to stir. You hear a distant rooster, its cry flat and lonely at first, then echoed faintly by another across the fields. Smoke rises everywhere now, blue and slow, tracing the same curve toward the colorless sky. You step outside and the cold greets you like an old acquaintance. It no longer feels hostile. The air is biting but clean, sharp with the scent of frost and peat and animals. The snow that fell in the night lies smooth across the fields, untouched except for the faint tracks of a fox or dog that wandered through before dawn. The landscape is still half asleep, glinting faintly in the pale light, every branch and thatch edge rimmed with silver. The village moves carefully at first. Figures emerge wrapped in cloaks, hoods pulled low, faces red from the first breath of open air. Someone carries a bucket, someone else an axe. A woman shakes the frozen straw from a blanket, spreading it out for drying. Every motion seems deliberate, as if all understand that the day's warmth depends on how gently it is begun. There is no chatter, only the crunch of snow, the clop of hooves, the faint clinking of tools. You walk a few steps from the doorway and turn back to look. Your own hut, small and crooked, leans slightly against the wind. Smoke curls from the roof in a thin grey line. The sight brings a quiet satisfaction. The house survived. You survived. Inside, the straw will already be cooling, but the fire will hold until evening. For now, that is enough. Historians speak often of medieval poverty, of hunger and disease and toil without end, yet standing here in the early light, it feels less like misery than equilibrium. Everything breathes together. The huts, the people, the animals, the land itself. Cold binds the world rather than breaking it. It insists on cooperation, on rhythm. The animals emerge one by one. The cow moves heavily, her breath steaming in long ribbons. The goat bleats, stamping at the crust of snow near the door. Their sound fills the stillness, grounding the morning. You scatter hay and grain with numb fingers, and the simple act feels sacred. Each motion warms you a little more. You do not need speech. You simply exist within the small, perfect logic of work. As the sun climbs, still low, still distant, it sends a faint gold wash over the frozen roofs. The light catches on icicles, turning them briefly to glass spindles of fire. It will melt nothing yet, but the sight is enough to change the mind's temperature. The cold remains, but it is softer now, less absolute. Children appear at last, blinking against the light, their breath visible in the air like small spirits. They laugh quietly, stomping their feet, chasing each other around the piles of snow. Their laughter sounds fragile but real. It spreads through the village like a small ripple of defiance against winter. Even the adults smile, if only briefly as they pass. Inside each hut, fires are being rebuilt. You can smell it on the wind, the resin of pine, the dry crack of oak. The scent mixes with the morning's chill, forming that unmistakable perfume of life in winter, smoke, cold and hope. You breathe it in and feel your chest ache with gratitude. Beyond the village, the fields sleep under snow, but you can still see the ghost lines of furrows, the memory of work waiting to return. The land has not died. It only waits, just as you waited through the night. Soon the days will lengthen, the ground will soften, and all this frozen silence will become water and green. But for now, waiting is enough. Waiting is what survival looks like. The sun clears the horizon at last. It is weak, thin, the color of pale metal, but it touches your face and warms the skin just enough to remind you what it feels like to belong to the living world. You close your eyes for a moment, and the light paints the inside of your eyelids with red. For the first time in many hours, you no longer feel the cold in your bones. You feel it only on your skin, where it belongs. Around you, the village continues its slow awakening. Tools are lifted, voices call softly. The day begins. The frost will linger, the air will bite again by night. But for now there is motion, breath, and sun. You look once more toward your hut. Smoke rising, door open, warmth breathing outward into the morning, and you understand that this too is a kind of victory. The world is still winter, but it is awake again. The day stretches outward with the calm certainty of repetition. It unfolds not in hours but in gestures, small, deliberate movements that measure time more faithfully than any clock. The smoke rising from the huts thins as the fires settle into their rhythm. The snow glitters, faintly crusted by the pale sun, and the air, though still cold enough to bite, carries a clarity that almost feels like music. You begin your tasks without words. The rhythm is the same as yesterday, as every day since the first frost. Water, feed, mend, carry, stack. The work itself is its own form of warmth. The motion draws blood into fingers, into feet, into cheeks that sting and flush and then calm again. Steam curls up from your skin where the cloak gaps at the throat. You breathe through it slowly, matching its rise and fall, and for a moment it looks as if the body itself is smoking, part of the same thin breath that keeps the whole village alive. The huts look different under daylight. Their imperfections, cracks in plaster, missing thatch, uneven timbers, are softened by the snow that clings to them. The entire settlement seems quieter than it truly is, muted by frost. A woman scrapes ice from a bucket. A man splits kindling with steady precision. A child runs past, bundled in fabric so thick that their laughter sounds distant, muffled inside layers of wool. You hear the rhythm of the axe, the faint ring of metal, the slosh of water poured into troughs. Each sound belongs exactly where it is. Nothing here happens too quickly. You walk toward the edge of the village where the fields lie beneath their frozen quilt. The land rests in perfect stillness. Even the crows are quiet, their dark forms perched like punctuation on the bare trees. The horizon is a blur of white and grey, the sky low and weighty. You pause there looking out, and the silence feels holy. This is not emptiness. It is pause. The earth itself seems to be breathing slowly, keeping its strength hidden until the thaw. Historians often describe winter in these centuries as hardship, shortage of food, hunger, disease. But standing here, you sense something more complex. Winter was also structure, the great leveling season. It forced stillness, demanded cooperation, gave the mind space to turn inward. The cold taught order. It measured patience. It gave people an understanding of time that modern warmth has forgotten, that every season holds its own wisdom, that rest and labor are not enemies but partners in a larger rhythm. You head back toward the huts, your boots crunching softly on the path. The smoke from the chimneys rises higher now, straight and steady, no longer pulled sideways by wind. The air smells faintly of baking bread, of wet wool, of life. A few voices rise together in brief conversation. The sound carries easily in the open air, simple words traded about work or weather or a sick animal. They are the same words spoken yesterday. And yet the repetition feels comforting. Survival depends on such sameness. Predictability is the closest thing to safety. Inside your own hut, the fire has gathered strength again. Its light moves across the walls, revealing patterns in the clay where someone's fingers once spread it smooth. You kneel, warming your hands, and the heat aches pleasantly against the skin. There is no luxury here, but there is satisfaction. This is warmth that has been earned, fire that belongs to you because you kept it alive through the night. The others move quietly around you. Bread is cut, tools are set aside, a cloak is hung near the fire to dry. The smell of smoke clings to everything, but now it smells less like survival and more like home. Even the animals resting near the wall seem content. Their steady breathing fills the silence between the crackle of the firewood. Outside, daylight leans into afternoon. The shadows grow longer, bluer, stretching across the snow like ink spreading through water. The sound of the axe stops. The buckets are stacked by the door. The village slows again, preparing for the return of darkness. The cold will come back, of course. It always does, but you are ready for it now. You know its shape, its rhythm, It's patience. You watch the fire and think of how night and day are not enemies here, only different parts of the same endless conversation. The light burns, the cold waits, and between them life continues, measured, slow, enduring. The flame flutters once, then steadies, and you see your reflection trembling faintly in its heart. The body is tired, but it is a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from motion and from purpose. Outside, the snow begins to fall again, gently this time, flakes drifting like feathers through the last of the light. The wind has softened, the world exhales. Soon it will be time to draw the door closed, to let the fire sink into its glow, to lie once more among straw and wool and breath. The night will come as it always does, but you will greet it not as an adversary, but as an old, predictable friend. By late afternoon the colour drains from the snow. The pale sunlight that had floated across the village all day slides lower, until it becomes a dull copper glow that lingers along the edges of roofs and frozen fences. The air cools quickly. The sound of work fades into the kind of hush that announces evening before anyone names it. You feel it in your hands first, the warmth leaving your fingers as if some invisible tide has turned. People begin their slow retreat indoors. A door shuts. Then another. The dull thud of wood against wood travels through the stillness. Smoke thickens again above each roof, curling upward until it merges with the dimming sky. Everything that breathes gathers closer to flame and wall. The rhythm of the day reverses itself, winding back toward the inward quiet of night. Inside the hut, the fire is alive but gentle. The light it casts is the color of honey, soft and slow. Shadows sway on the walls like thoughts half remembered. Someone adds a log. Someone else stirs a pot that has been simmering for hours. The smell of smoke, onions and wet wool mixes into a single heavy perfume that settles over everyone like a blanket. You sit cross-legged near the hearth, palms open to the heat, watching the way it flickers against the faces of those around you. No one speaks much now. Words feel unnecessary. The fire speaks well enough. Children drowse against their parents' sides. An older man hums something under his breath, not a tune but a rhythm meant to fill the space between crackles. Outside a dog barks once, sharp and clear, then is silent again. The sound falls into the snow and disappears. You think of how this moment repeats itself endlessly across centuries. Different faces, different winters, the same conversation between light and cold. It is a pattern carved so deep into human life that even the future will not erase it completely. You feel its weight and its comfort. Repetition is not prison. It is survival arranged into music. The fire brightens briefly when a draft slips through the door gap. Sparks leap, and for an instant the room is full of motion, hands, hair, breath all illuminated. Then the flare dies back, leaving only the pulse of orange in the coals. The hush that follows feels sacred. Everyone has settled into that familiar waiting that comes just before sleep. You stretch your legs, flexing feet still sore from frozen ground. The straw is spread fresh tonight. Thicker, drier, it crackles when touched. The sound reminds you of distant rain, though the roof has not heard rain for months. You ease down into it, drawing the cloak around your shoulders, feeling the slow surrender of muscle to rest. Someone whispers a prayer in the corner. Nothing formal, just a few words for warmth, for health, for mercy on the livestock through the next storm. The murmur blends with the breathing of the animals, with the sigh of the fire, with the faint moan of wind against the wall. The room becomes a single, slow heartbeat. Historians will someday write about castles and battles and kings, but here, in this fragile, smoky circle of light, lies the real history of winter. It is written in breath and straw and patience. It is the quiet story of how people learned to outlast darkness not with glory, but with rhythm. Outside, the snow begins again. Fine as flour, it taps softly on the thatch, each flake melting just enough to leave a mark before freezing once more. You listen to it with half-closed eyes. The sound is neither storm nor peace. It is simply time passing. The cold will deepen again before dawn, that is certain, but tonight it feels different. The body has remembered how to rest, the mind has learned the shape of endurance. You lie back, hearing the straw settle beneath you, the faint hum of breath around you, and think that perhaps the truest comfort in this world is not warmth at all, but belonging to the night, to the season, to one another. You exhale once more, slowly, and the air leaves you in a thin silver thread that disappears into the firelight. The cycle continues. Night has come again, and you are ready for it. The night returns quietly, the way a tide creeps over a familiar shore. It does not rush, it does not demand, it simply folds itself back around you, until the last light of the fire is only a pulse behind closed eyes. You lie in darkness, wrapped in wool and smoke, and the faint ache of muscles that have spent the day at work. Outside, snow still falls, soundless and endless, its rhythm so slow that it feels less like weather and more like breath. Sleep gathers but does not claim you at once. The mind drifts first, loosening its grip on what is real. The edges of the hut fade. The breathing of others becomes the wind becomes memory. The smell of smoke becomes the scent of summer. Distant, impossible, but vivid enough that for a moment you believe it. You see fields shimmering in heat, rye waving like gold, bees buzzing thick around their hives. You hear water trickling over stones. You feel the weight of sun on your back, and the ghost of warmth slips through the cold like a secret remembered by the soul, but forgotten by the flesh. The dream is slow and generous. It does not show you wealth or feasts or miracles, it shows you enough, light, movement, the simple miracle of green. You walk barefoot through it, and the ground is warm, alive. There is a hum in the air, a sound so low and steady that you realize it is the same hum that lives beneath winter, just softened, just hidden. It has always been there. It never left. You move through that dream world until the air changes again, until the brightness begins to fade. You open your eyes, and for a moment you are unsure which season holds you. The hut around you breathes. A cow stirs. The fire flares weakly, reminding you where you are. The line between dream and waking is thin as a thread. It was common, people said, to dream vividly in the coldest months. Sleep came in fragments, and between them visions crept in, of saints, of ancestors, of the dead whispering through frost. You understand why, when silence grows deep enough, memory begins to speak. You feel it now, that strange closeness between this life and all the others that came before. The hut feels full of them, those who built it, who repaired the roof, who slept on this same earth floor long before your name was ever spoken. Their breath feels mingled with yours, their dreams perhaps still echoing faintly through the straw. You close your eyes again and let that thought settle like warmth. The body is heavy now, but the mind floats above it, half inside the dream, half inside the smoke. The air smells sweet and dark, like burnt resin. You breathe it deeply, slow and careful. The cold still exists, but it is far away, muffled by the rhythm of your pulse. Somewhere in the distance the wind begins to rise. It moves across the land in long, low sighs, bending through the trees, brushing the snow, pressing gently at the walls. The hut groans but holds. The sound of the wind blends with the murmur of the fire, and together they weave a lullaby older than language. Historians sometimes call this age hard, but lying here you can feel its gentleness too. It was a world that knew its boundaries. Cold, hunger, dark, and yet learned to make peace within them. The people who lived through these nights were not fearless. They were patient. They listened. They trusted the rhythm that carried them from dusk to dawn, from frost to thaw, from death to birth. Your breath slows again. The world narrows to warmth under cloak, and the faint sound of snow brushing the thatch. The dream begins to return. First the sound of water, then the smell of rye, then the hum of bees. You realize the dream and the waking world are the same. Only temperature separates them. Both are made of endurance. Both are shaped by faith in a morning that always somehow comes. You drift deeper, feeling the weight of the season, of all the nights before this one, and yet what fills you is not despair but tenderness, a sense that the cold itself has become a teacher, that it is not here to punish but to remind. The body is small, the world is vast, and between them exists this quiet understanding called survival. The fire pops once. The straw sighs as someone turns over beside you. Outside, the snow whispers down, endless and forgiving. The night settles again, patient and complete. The dream opens without a beginning. You do not fall into it. You drift, weightless, as though sleep has melted the walls and roof away, and you are suddenly outside, standing in the quiet heart of the night itself. The snow has stopped. The world is perfectly still, held in the fragile balance between dark and dawn. Every sound feels magnified, the slow creak of ice in the river, the faint crack of a distant branch under frost. The village lies below you, small and dim, smoke from a few fading fires coiling upward in soft grey ribbons. You recognize your own hut by its shape, by the pattern of snow drifted against its side. It looks older from above, humbler, almost part of the land itself. You see the thin glow of embers flickering faintly through the cracks, the gentle rise and fall of the roof as it breathes with the warmth inside. Within those thin walls, people are sleeping. Your people, their faces turned toward the faintest promise of heat, their breaths joining into one low, steady hum. From here it sounds like a single living creature asleep beneath the snow. You begin to walk, though there is no real ground beneath your feet. The snow doesn't sink. It shimmers faintly, light gliding over it like water. The trees are black silhouettes against a sky so deep it feels infinite. The moon hides behind thin clouds, but its light still finds its way through, turning every branch and roof into something luminous, something sacred. There is a presence in the air, soft, ancient, familiar. It feels like the cold itself is watching, not as an enemy but as a keeper. You understand suddenly that winter is not trying to kill you. It is teaching you how to stay. It tests what you remember, what you can endure, what you can carry forward. It whispers lessons that only silence can hold. That warmth means nothing without cold. That endurance is the first language of faith. You move through the village quietly. The animals sleep standing in the byres, heads low, steam rising from their nostrils. A dog stirs but does not bark. It only lifts its head, looks at you, and seems to see through you, as though it knows you are somewhere between body and breath. Farther off, near the fields, a figure stands. At first you think it is a tree, a shape carved from frost, but then it moves. You approach slowly, though the snow makes no sound under your steps. The figure is cloaked, hooded, face hidden, hands clasped together as if in prayer. You sense not fear but recognition. When it turns, the face you see could be your own, or the face of someone who lived centuries before you, or someone yet to come. The eyes are quiet, steady, carrying the same patience that winter itself carries. Do you see them? The figure whispers, voice low as breath over ice. You look again toward the huts. Each roof glows faintly from within. Inside, lives continue in perfect rhythm, breathing, dreaming, waiting for light. The figure nods, as though this sight is answer enough. They sleep, you murmur. They survive. The figure smiles, a slow, small curve that could almost be sorrow, as they always have. The wind rises then, gentle but vast, flowing through the trees, over the roofs, through you. It carries a sound with it, not words, but something like singing, a hum born from breath and cold and centuries of repetition. You realize it is the sound of the living and the dead together, the echo of all who ever slept beneath thatched roofs, who ever endured a night like this one. Their memories linger in the smoke, in the straw, in the frozen earth. You are inside their dream now, and they are inside yours. The sky begins to lighten at its edge. A thin silver thread unfurls across the horizon, the first color of morning. The figure beside you looks toward it and fades, dissolving into the pale shimmer of dawn. The light touches the fields, the huts, the snow. It touches you too, though you no longer feel cold or weight or fear. You blink, and the world shifts again. The village below is stirring. A rooster cries. Smoke rises anew. The glow from the hearth strengthens. For a moment you see both worlds, the dream and the waking, layered one atop the other like frost over water. And then the dream releases you, slow and gentle. You breathe in, taste air that is real again, heavy with smoke and morning, and the faint sweetness of thawing straw. The hut is around you once more. Someone snores softly beside you. A child stirs. You realize your face is wet, though whether from melting frost or dream tears you cannot say. The fire crackles low, patient and alive. You exhale, long and slow, and whisper the only word that feels right: thank you. Outside, the sky is brightening. The long night has ended, again, as it always does. Dawn arrives not with noise but with light that seeps through the world like a slow confession. It touches the thatch first, those thick, frost-rimmed bundles that now glimmer as if dusted with ground glass, and then it slides down the uneven walls, finding every crack and smudge of soot, painting them gold. The air inside the hut brightens gradually, moving from grey to amber. You can see your breath less clearly now. The cold is no longer heavy enough to claim it. Someone stirs beside you. A muffled yawn, a rustle of straw, the small noises of waking ripple outward, cloaks shifting, a child mumbling half-formed words, an animal shaking itself near the wall. The fire, almost ash an hour ago, answers with a faint crackle when stirred. Thin ribbons of smoke curl upward through the roof. Light and heat re-enter the room together, like old friends returning from exile. Outside, the snow reflects everything. The village glows, each hut crowned with its plume of smoke. The sky is a clean, translucent blue, streaked with a pale wash of pink near the horizon. The river is frozen still, but the surface gleams, and in the shimmer you can almost believe that movement lives beneath it, waiting. You step out, drawing your cloak tight, boots crunching through the thin crust of snow. The cold touches your face but feels softer now, as if the day itself has forgiven something. Around you, life resumes its slow choreography. A woman empties a bucket of grey water. A man carries wood from the stack. A dog barks high and sharp, chasing its own echo. The smell of smoke and baking bread floats through the air, so familiar it feels like memory rather than scent. The light of morning changes everything it touches. Even the rough timber beams and mud walls look noble in it. The imperfections of the world which seemed cruel at night become proof of endurance. You look toward the fields, the long white plains stretching to the horizon, and you can already imagine the green beneath it, patient, invisible, gathering its strength. Historians write about the hardship of these winters, about scarcity and fear, but standing here, you see something gentler, the beauty of repetition. Each day begins as the last ended, with smoke, with work, with faith. And yet every morning feels new because survival itself renews meaning. The world does not promise ease. It promises rhythm, and rhythm is what keeps people alive. The sun rises higher now, its light reflecting off the snow so fiercely that you have to narrow your eyes. You see the village in motion, children running between huts, laughter bright as bells in the crisp air, old men mending fences, women shaking out blankets near the fire's glow. Every gesture seems deliberate, grateful, as if the whole community understands that light is a loan, not a guarantee. You turn your face to the sun and feel its warmth land across your cheeks. The skin tingles, it hurts a little, the way thaw always does. It is a small pain, honest and human. The warmth sinks deeper, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you can smell earth beneath the snow, faint but real, the promise of life returning. You close your eyes for a moment and breathe in. Behind the scent of smoke and straw, you can taste the faint sweetness of thawing air. The cold remains, but it is thinner now, more transparent. You understand suddenly that winter's power lies not only in its cruelty, but in what it leaves behind: gratitude. To wake, to breathe, to see the sun again. These are luxuries too great for words. Someone calls your name. You turn, smiling without meaning to. There will be tasks to do, fires to tend, tools to mend. The cycle continues. But for now, in this sliver of morning, you stand still, warmed by light and memory, and the knowledge that night has once again been survived. The snow sparkles, the smoke rises, the world exhales. By midday, the sun sits low but unwavering, a pale disk above the snowbound land. It does not bring true warmth, only light, which feels like its own kind of mercy. The sky is washed clean of clouds, a thin dome of silver blue stretching endlessly over the fields. Everything glows softly beneath it, as if the world itself has been dipped in frost and gold. The villagers move steadily through their chores. Tools clink faintly, firewood cracks, water sloshes dull and heavy in wooden buckets. No one hurries. Time itself feels slower here, measured not in minutes but in gestures. The swing of an axe, the passing of a pail, the lifting of smoke that curls and drifts into the still air. Even the children play quietly, their laughter absorbed by snow before it can echo far. You watch all of it with a strange calmness, as if observing from outside time. There is nothing dramatic in these movements, no grandeur, yet they hold something sacred. This, you realize, is how civilizations survive, not through kings or armies, but through the persistence of ordinary hands that refuse to stop working, even when the cold bites and the stomach aches. A few men gather near the well, breaking the ice that has formed over the water. The sound is clear, crystalline, echoing across the open air. You can see their breath rising together, clouds that meet and blend before vanishing into sunlight. Nearby, a woman kneels to feed the chickens, scattering handfuls of grain that fall like yellow dust on the white ground. The contrast of color is startling, proof that life still insists on being seen, even in the bleakest of seasons. You sit on a low stool near the door of your hut, a bowl of broth cupped between your palms. The steam rises in slow spirals, carrying the scent of herbs and smoke. You drink carefully, savoring each sip. The warmth spreads downward, not quickly but steadily, the way sunlight creeps across a wall. It reaches your chest, your hands, your legs. You feel your body remembering itself, coming back from the edge of cold. For a moment you think of how fragile all this is, how a single bad harvest, a sickness, a storm could undo everything. And yet fragility does not feel like weakness here. It feels like truth. The people of this place do not fight nature. They move with it, surrendering just enough to survive. That surrender, quiet and humble, is its own kind of strength. Historians will one day write that peasants lived at the mercy of the elements, but you see now that mercy flows both ways. The land may take, but it also gives: grain in summer, shelter in forest, water in thaw, and even in this cold silence, a strange and steady beauty. The rhythm between hardship and grace is not cruelty. It is balance. The hours pass quietly. Shadows grow long again, stretching thin across the snow like pale threads of ink. The wind shifts and carries with it the distant sound of bells, faint, irregular, perhaps from a nearby chapel or a shepherd calling to his animals. The tone is low, melancholic, but comforting too, as if the air itself hums with memory. You look toward the horizon. The light has begun to change again, yellow giving way to amber, amber to red. The sky ripens slowly, the snow reflecting each color until it seems to glow from within. The cold sharpens, but so does the sense of wonder. In this hour between day and night, the world looks ancient and eternal at once. The villagers finish their work and drift back toward the huts. Doors close. Smoke thickens again. The rhythm resets. You sit a while longer, watching the last of the light bleed into the distance. There is no rush, the night will come regardless. When it does, you will return to the same straw bed, the same fire, the same cycle of warmth and cold and sleep. And somehow, that thought brings peace. The sameness is not prison, It is promise. Each day survived is a bridge to the next. Each sunrise is proof that winter, no matter how long, cannot erase life completely. The sun slips below the edge of the world, leaving behind only the faint afterglow of gold on ice. You rise slowly, your breath clouding in the dim air, and turn toward the hut. Behind you, the snow hums with the faint sound of settling, a quiet sigh as the land prepares to dream again. Tomorrow will be the same, and that, you think, is its own kind of miracle. Night comes softly, almost tenderly. The last light fades from the snow, and the world folds inward once again, returning to the quiet heart of winter. You step back into the hut and close the door behind you. The air inside is thick with warmth and scent, smoke, wool, and the faint sweetness of drying straw. The fire burns low, its glow pulsing across the faces of those already half asleep. You lower yourself beside it, the wood crackling faintly like the steady breath of something ancient and alive. Outside, the wind begins to move again, brushing along the walls in long, patient strokes. The thatch creaks, the snow sighs, but nothing feels hostile now. The night no longer threatens, it simply is. You lie down, pulling the cloak around your shoulders, feeling the coarse fabric settle into its familiar weight. The straw beneath you whispers softly, reshaping to fit your body's memory. Around you, the sounds of sleep return, slow breathing, the quiet shuffle of an animal, the faint pop of a coal collapsing into ash. The cold waits beyond the door, but it will not win tonight. The walls may be thin, the fire small, the world indifferent, but warmth has been made here by human hands, by breath, by care, by faith in the simplest things. You understand now that survival is not a single act. It is a rhythm, waking, working, resting, enduring. The body learns it, the soul memorizes it, and together they carry you from night to night until spring comes again. Your eyes drift shut. The air is heavy with smoke, but you no longer resist it. It smells of effort, of life. The same smoke that stung your eyes now feels like an old companion. Somewhere near your feet, the cow exhales. Somewhere above, frost tightens on the roof. The world holds its breath, and for a long moment, everything is still. You feel it then, the deep silence that belongs only to winter. It is not emptiness, but fullness. It is the sound of all who have ever lived like this, their stories folded into the hush of snow and straw and breath. You are not separate from them. You are another thread in the same endless fabric. The last ember fades, the darkness settles fully, and the night closes over you like a hand closing around something precious but fragile. You do not fear it. You sleep. And somewhere outside, beneath the endless white sky, the earth dreams too of thaw, of sun, of warmth returning, just as it has every winter since the beginning of time.